There we are.
Yep, we're live now, Kenny.
There we are. All right, cool. Well,
So, are we labeled on the layout there? Oh yeah, we are. Never mind. Haha.
yes, and it's in the correct order of words. So, hi everybody. I am Kenny, CNEY, and we've got Lovebot, Toucan Sam, and Mr. Bond here, ready to race some Assault Android Cactus campaign.
Hey.
If everyone just wants to say hello initially.
I'll just
Hello.
go first, and I'm Lovebot. I'm in the bottom corner. I think I don't know what else to introduce, so I'll just let Sam go next.
I'm Sam. I don't know what corner I'm in. I think I'm in the top right.
Yeah, top right.
Yes, you are.
Yep, I'm in top right.
I'm Mr. Bond. I'm in the top left there. Been running this for a couple months, I guess. Is that pertinent info to have?
Oh yeah, how long have we been running? I've been running for almost a year now.
I've been running for a little over a year.
And I've done a few runs, but I'm here for commentating and moral support because I am not as good as these guys are. We've got a pretty cool community. We've got sort of varying levels of skill in terms of like people that speedrun the game, but it's going to be a real interesting watch. It's going to be action-packed. There's going to be many, many shots fired. I defy you to count the number of shots fired. It'll be like playing red car, blue car because there are different colored bullets and stuff. But yeah.
Oh, and since we are racing, we will do a countdown, and since our sound setup is a little bit funky, I will be doing the countdown, and then for the rest of the run, it's just going to be Kenny commentating. So I guess this is the last you will hear from the runners until we're finished.
Oh,
Good
did we
luck,
want
everybody.
to? Did we want to mention what we're planning?
Oh yeah, you can mention. Oh, I can
So
mention.
there is a demo of this game. I will point that out right now. It's got the intro tutorial plus 3 levels plus a boss plus an unlockable Android character. We want to encourage as many people to give this game a try because we think it's really good and really well polished and well designed. And to that end, we are going to have a little bit of a competition to speedrun the first level Descent, and we'll be giving more info about that after the race.
Alright, I'm turning Kenny down if you want to give the countdown whenever you're ready, Lovebot.
Yeah, if everybody is ready, then so am I.
Yep, I'm ready.
All right. So let's go in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so about Assault Android Cactus. This is a twin-stick shooter, arcade style. It can be played with a gamepad or with keyboard and mouse. You'll actually see Lovebot and Toucan Sam playing with keyboard and mouse, as you can see the white targeting reticle on the screen. Mr. Bond is playing with controller. We do have people that do it either way, and you'll be surprised how good people are regardless of what control scheme. There are several different androids available in this game. These 3 are all playing as Starch, who is generally regarded as the fastest one to complete the game with in campaign mode. Each android has a unique set of weapons, so Starch's primary attack is this laser beam, which you can see it basically has unlimited range, but it does much more damage up close, so you'll see that all these players are basically trying to stay as close as possible to enemies as they're firing and play aggressively. Her secondary weapon is micro missiles that kind of home in on enemies. It's really good at like medium to semi-long range. You generally don't want to use it as close range because chances are it'll end up firing at the enemies that are farther away from you. So this first level Descent, everyone just kind of blazed through that in about a minute and change. Going into the second level Turbine. To explain some of the enemies that we're encountering, so the green kegs are sort of just the grunts of the game, where they've got basically just a melee attack. Then you've got the hunter kegs, which we saw at the beginning of the second level, which shoot 3 bullets at you in a straight pattern. Then you've got the mega kegs, which are these large red ones, which take a lot more to kill, and they shoot bullets in like a 3-way pattern. Then we've got these bullet turrets that are dropping down in the center of the screen. You want to take care of those as quickly as possible because they shoot multiple sets of 4 or 5 bullets, and if you accidentally circle strafe into those, they can take you down immediately. We've also got drones that we're seeing coming out of the holes in the floor, and the drones aren't too much of a threat unless they can kind of become large in number, and so if you're not paying attention, you can end up walking into their bullets by accident. I should mention the battery mechanic. So in this game, you can get knocked down as many times as you want. There is not a limit on the number of lives. Instead, you have what's essentially a timer. This battery meter in the top center of the screen, when it's full, lasts for 60 seconds. But you need to find battery pickups as you defeat enemies in waves to recharge the battery. And it also gives you points, so if you're going for a score, you don't want to miss them either. We're moving into the third stage filament at this point, which has some dynamic lighting effects going on, where you have one phase where the lights are on and one phase where the lights are off, and that alternates. We'll also see Titans on this level. We saw one Bomber Titan in the first level, and we're going to see a few more here, and they're so-called Bomber Titans because they shoot mines out of their arm cannons. So you want to take care of them as quickly as possible also, so that they preferably don't get to actually shoot those at you. You'll notice that generally the players are going for a firepower power-up, which is the red pickup on the floor. The power-ups cycle between 3 types of power-ups. So there's firepower, which is red, which gives you these 2 drones next to you, which is part of why I said it would be a real challenge to actually count the number of shots fired in this game. The yellow power-up is accelerate, which makes you move faster, helps you to dodge attacks to a degree, and also attracts weapon energy and batteries to you faster and from a larger distance. And then you've got the blue power-up, which is shutdown, which does a few things. It stops enemies from moving, it makes them take slightly more damage when they're shut down, it recharges your health meter, and it makes you invincible for a few seconds. Now, anytime that you're glowing white, you are invincible, and you will notice that you glow white when you pick up a shutdown, you glow white when you get up from getting knocked down, you also glow white for a split second when you weapon swap. And that is super important, because that is basically a dodge mechanic. You can essentially tank hits in this game by weapon swapping at the right time, so you will see them use that a lot. So this stage is the first where we kind of get more into the dynamic level design, where you saw the bits of the stage turn from walls to holes, and the real difference is you can't walk over them either way, and this game will prevent you from falling into holes, so you don't have to worry about being too careful there. But obviously walls you can't shoot through, although with Starch's micro-missiles you can sometimes shoot around them. So we also had a mine phase, if you noticed, in this stage, where we just had a whole bunch of mines dropped on our heads, or actually at the side of the level in this stage. We will have worse mine phases in stages to come, but that was kind of a premonition to kind of get you primed for what this game can throw at you. Accelerate is actually, like, at least for casual plays, Accelerate is really good for mine phases because you can basically avoid getting instantly down by a mine dropping on your head. So we're getting to the first boss now. This is Embryo. And he shoots lots and lots of bullets. And when you first play this game, you might think, oh my god, this guy looks scary, and I'm going to keep my distance from him. Except, you'll notice that a lot of his bullet patterns fan out as they get further away. So staying far away is bad for that reason. Plus, again, Starch's laser does more damage up close, so there's that reason too, that you want to try to stay close to kill him as fast as possible. He's got 6 phases, so you'll notice that the boss's life bar is sort of divided into segments, and that represents the phases that the boss has. So it's pretty useful to see, you know, how much you've got left, what you can expect. Also, on bosses, you get a battery drop after each phase. So, I've seen some people who are new to the game play it and kind of be begging for battery from a boss, and it's kind of like, well, if you beat this phase of the boss, you'll get a battery. That's how it works on bosses. So now we're into the second zone. There's 1 boss per zone, 5 levels, including a boss at the end, and each set of levels, each zone has its own sort of aesthetic and its own music as well. So now we're into the second zone, which is it's kind of a review initially, because we're getting all kinds of enemies that we saw before. So, like, you can think of each boss as a difficulty spike. I wouldn't say it's an unfair one, I would say it's a pretty accurately measured one. But then the first level in the next zone tends to be sort of a review and a bit of a cooldown. But now we've got this one new enemy, these wasps. They don't look too threatening. There's a couple of problems that wasps kind of throw at you, though. One is, if you get swarmed by them, you are probably going to have a bad time and go down, so you do want to keep your distance. They can take you down, and they do tend to swarm. We'll see that more so as we get further into the zone. The other problem with wasps is it's very easy for them to accidentally get stuck behind like pillars and stuff in the level, so you can kind of end up like desperately hunting for what enemy you haven't killed before the next wave will spawn in. Because this game is entirely wave-based, so the waves in the campaign are all the same, so these players generally know what to expect as they're playing it. So, like, they know that the last phase is going to have a bunch of wasps and a bunch of regular kegs on it, for instance. But in order to advance waves, you basically have to kill enough enemies or all enemies in the previous wave to make them progress. And sometimes waves have, like, a certain number of the same type of enemy where only a certain number of them will spawn in at once. So, like, for example, in Influx here, which is another rather dynamic level, we're going to see a lot of switching going on here. But like with you get a pair of mines dropping at a time in the first phase of this level, and you won't get the next pair of mines to drop until you defeat the previous pair of mines. So stuff like that. There will be a couple of levels in the game that are not as arena-esque as most of them, but most of them are battle arenas like this, and even the levels that aren't are still wave-based. Like, you have to kill all the enemies to move on. There is no skipping enemies in this game. There is only killing enemies as fast as possible to go fast. So, this map introduces Fidos, which is everybody's favorite. You might have noticed the missile phase of Embryo, the first boss, where you have these targeting reticles on the ground, and basically you need to get out of there, otherwise there's going to be an explosion there a split second later. The Fidos basically take that mechanic as their sole mechanic. So, as soon as they have line of sight with you, they will open their tops and shoot a missile into the sky, and it will eventually fall down. And you can see where it's going to fall down. You can see the targeting reticles on the ground. They start out red, and they sort of like get narrower and turn white as the missile gets closer. The thing to watch out for with missiles is it's actually possible to walk into the explosion after the missile lands. As long as that red damage is on the ground, you can get hurt by it, so you got to be a little bit careful. Also, to talk about the types of damage. So we've seen a lot of red damage in the mines and the missiles. All the enemies fire blue bullets normally, and all of the androids fire yellow or orange weapons. So orange or yellow, whichever you want to call it, that damage only hurts enemies. Blue damage only hurts you, and red damage will hurt either. So technically, like these blaster titans that we're seeing now, which shoot these sort of red shockwaves, those can kill enemies too. And like the mines that the bomber titans shoot can also kill enemies. And as long as you do some damage to the enemies... Oh, here's my favorite mine phase. Let's see if they all make it through here. Alright, that was good. It's very easy to get screwed over by that mine phase because you don't have a whole lot of room to move because of the sort of donut shape of this level, Oxygen. But yeah, so red damage can kill other enemies, so you can actually try to get enemies to... They won't necessarily turn on each other Doom style, but they can basically end up unwittingly killing each other. And there's also going to be lasers later, and other stuff, so keep in mind the damage colors for that, too. So we're finishing up Oxygen now. We've got Lovebot moving into Process, which... You notice these look like conveyor belts. Yep, they are conveyor belts. And they will start moving as the level progresses, and their speed will change. I don't know if their direction changes now that I think of it, but the speed definitely changes a bit. And this is going to throw all sorts of enemies at us, and you just kind of have to... Yes, the direction does also change. You basically have to make sure you know where you're standing and where you're going, because if you just happen to be walking on a conveyor belt and moving against the flow, you're essentially not moving at all. It's basically got a treadmill effect. So you're just gonna have to keep aware of what you're standing on. And so here's another example where we've got a pair of Bomber Titans at a time, and once you kill the pair, another pair drops down. I guess I should mention that this game does have local co-op, not network co-op, but local co-op. And local co-op varies the number of enemies and the amount it takes to kill them. So it does basically scale difficulty with the number of players that are playing. So now we've got a whole mess of Bomber Titans, Buster Titans, Fidos, Wasps. Pretty much a whole ton of the enemies that have been... oh, and Hunter Kegs, don't forget those. So a lot of the enemies that we've seen so far are just getting thrown at us in more and more aggressive patterns. So Lovebot is now heading into the second boss, Vespula. This boss actually gives a lot of people, even at higher level play, problems. Especially in non-boss rush mode like this, where you're starting with no weapon energy. Killing these wasps can feel sort of... it feels like it sort of resists you, I guess, is the best way to say it. Like, it feels slow. Whereas if you have full weapon energy coming in boss rush, you can pretty much melt through them. But basically, each of the odd-numbered phases on this boss involves wasps, and this is an example of, like, these wasps can very easily swarm and kill you very fast, because they go in, like, a set orbital pattern, and they do not slow down. The third and fifth phases in particular tend to be troublesome. I find the third phase in particular the most menacing in terms of wasps. The fifth phase, you can actually sort of effectively kite the wasps, as you'll see Lovebot doing here. Keeping that... Unfortunately, they surged out. In the fifth phase, the wasps will occasionally surge out in sort of like a straight line. And unfortunately, that brought Lovebot down there. Fortunately, he did get a shutdown for the sixth phase, which is really helpful because there is a lot of stuff going on screen at once. For the sixth phase, the most important thing that you want to try to do, aside from getting a shutdown power-up, is to stay within the orbit of the wasps. Because as long as there's only going to be a maximum set number of wasps orbiting. So if you're not killing the wasps, that means you don't have to deal with new ones spawning in and falling into that orbit. As long as you're inside of that radius, you can basically just completely ignore the wasps. You just have to be careful of the vine attack and the novelty flowers, as Cactus calls them in the boss dialogue. I will point out that the players are not they're skipping boss dialogue. There's an option in the settings to do that, because obviously we want to go fast. We don't want to be, feverishly clicking through boss dialogue ourselves, so we just skip it. But I should point out that all of the characters in the game, in addition to having rather unique playstyles, they also have unique boss dialogue. So one of the things I did last month was run through the game fighting all bosses with all characters to show off all the boss dialogue that it had in it. And initially you start with 4 androids available in this game. Starch is actually the first unlockable android. And you unlock more as the game progresses. So now we're all into the third zone. And this is one of the maps that I was mentioning before is sort of not as much of an arena, at least until you get to the end, which Lovebot just did, for example. But like, there's actually a progression to this level, but you cannot skip enemies, and you cannot skip batteries. As long as there are enemies standing or a battery on the field, the level will not progress. So, depending on which part of the level you're in, either you will be stuck behind a closed door, or if you're in that hallway, it'll actually just like stretch on forever. Which is especially noticeable if you get like an accelerate power-up and then try to just rush through it. It almost feels like it's rubber banding or something. It's kind of funny. So now they're in the final stretch of this. One thing that I neglected to mention as they were going through that hallway, there was a lot of mines in there, and some of them were bigger than others. Those are super mines, and this is actually the only level in the campaign that super mines show up in. We also have our first laser turrets. They are red lasers, so they can also shoot damage enemies, but we generally just want to kill everything as fast as possible. So, like, while you might be able to argue that you could use the laser to your advantage to help you soften up enemies, you are restricting your movement by having to deal with that laser on the field, so it's kind of better to just take everything out yourself. So now we're into transit, and this is a kind of nifty level, because you're basically on this one platform the whole time, but it gives the illusion of movement, because you've got these like overhead shadows moving by, you've got the scenery on the sides moving by, and you've got this big fat laser. And we've got crates, which enemies are going to bust out of, just like the Bomber Titan on the very first level of the game did. But yeah, that laser is bad news, and this is one of the levels where weapon swapping to gain that momentary invulnerability really helps, because you can essentially tank running through the laser, like Lovebot just did as I said that, although I may be on a couple of seconds delay from that. So you'll notice that there is one crate still here. somebody just got knocked down. And then, as if to add insult to injury, another missile just hit Sam as he was getting up, but he was invincible then, so it's fine. Uh-oh, he got knocked down again, unfortunately, because he got cornered and got hit by the Blaster Titan's attack. Blaster Titans generally aren't too bad to deal with. I find them less difficult to deal with than Bomber Titans, just because Blaster Titans, as long as you're circle strafing them, they generally won't hit you. One thing to mention about this level is, as this platform turns, there is actually sort of inertia applied. So, like, you will find that you can't really move in all directions as usual. You kind of get sort of pressed to one side of the platform when it turns like that, which is kind of interesting, but it's also really a harrowing experience, because usually when the cart turns like that, there's also mines dropping, and sometimes it's hard to see where they're coming from. Like right now on Mr. Bond's screen, for example. We are getting towards the end of the level at this point. There is that one crate still left on Sam's screen. I don't know if these others have been past that already. But don't forget that crate is there, because as we know, crates like to have things in them that bust them open and attack you. And there we go. Sam just got the Blaster Titan out of that last crate, but no problem there. He was expecting it. I should also mention Wasp tanks. So you'll notice there are these canisters that, when you break them open, they have wasps inside. It's like a birthday piñata, except terrible. So you can generally... Firepower really helps against wasps, especially with Starch, because it effectively widens the area that she damages. But you can basically sort of do a waving motion where you break the canister towards one of its sides, and then you just kind of swipe your laser across. It's going to be tougher here on heat, because you're at the minimum weapon power. And you'll notice that there's this lovely red flame on this level. Yeah, that's going to be a thing. And notice that there is also a jet on the other side of this rotating wall here. So, yeah, if that makes you guess that this flame could come out the other side too, you are correct. And that is something to definitely keep in mind as you go through this level. The walls can change direction that they rotate, and the flames can come out of either side. And we will see that as this level progresses. And yes, there is the mine phase, which the flame actually kind of helps you with, but you have to know it's coming, because that phase where the mines drop and it does this sweep across the room with the flame just kind of trolls everybody the first time they play it. And yes, thank you, Boris, for pointing out that if you go down, you lose weapon energy. And I neglected to talk about weapon energy. So these little white pellets that they pick up are increasing their weapon energy. You can see in the top left corner they have a life meter, and then there is a white bar underneath with little white pellets to the left of that. The number of white pellets indicates your weapon level, and the white bar indicates your progress towards the next level, or in the case of weapon level 3, which is max, it kind of indicates a buffer you have. Because if you do not pick up weapon energy for about 5 seconds, you will actually start losing weapon power, and you don't want to do that. Because obviously, with your weapon, if you lose weapon level 3, you start killing things slower, and that means you're not going as fast. And so yeah, when you die, you lose your chain, which is important for if you're going for score, which these guys are more concerned with speed at this point. But you also lose your weapon energy when you die, so when you go down. So getting knocked down is really kind of expensive. Depending on the level and the situation, it's possible to recover from it without losing too much time sometimes, but you're definitely going to lose time from it. So now we're into Revolution. So if you like the conveyor belts on Process, yeah, these are worse. So in Revolution, you basically got these alternating rings. So the center ring doesn't move, the second one does, the third one doesn't, the fourth one does, the fifth one doesn't. So one way to try to hedge your bets in this map is to try to stay on the non-moving parts. However, they'll move the enemies too, and they'll move battery pickups, which is kind of important. So even if you're not standing on the conveyors, that helps you, but they can still prove a hindrance anyway. Also, I guess I should point out that, like, it's not the end of the world if you miss a battery. The game is kind of forgiving in terms of how much you can get knocked down and still beat a level, and missing one battery isn't the end of the world, but missing 2 batteries is usually trouble. And on this stage, batteries can be kind of hard to keep track of because of all of the rotating conveyors. And you've got a whole lot of stuff to deal with in this level. You've got Fidos, you've got... I didn't mention, I didn't explain the orbital factories. So these large green circular guys, and then we've got vector factories, which are the smaller red versions. They have these nodes that they shoot out. So the orbital factories shoot out nodes in an orbit, as the name implies, and you generally don't want to get really close to an orbital factory because the nodes will kill you pretty much immediately if you get into their little radius there. Vector factories tend to be a little easier to deal with, but they can still do serious damage, so you kind of don't want to maintain direct line of sight to them so that they can't shoot you. And I just lost the stream for some reason, so I am going to refresh right now. My Chrome tab just crashed, so I'll be up and running in a minute. Okay, I'm getting back now. That was funny. So I was watching these 3 beam streams for, I don't know, the last half hour or so, and Chrome just decided he couldn't take it anymore. So we're back, and now we're fighting the 3rd boss. This is Justice. And he does quite literally rain from above for all you Overwatch fans when he comes into the map. So Justice is honestly kind of easier in our point of view than Vespula. However, he does sort of have a perceived difficulty spike in that he has 3 phases, not 6. You'll notice that his life bar only has 2 splits in it. And that kind of makes him look tougher. And in fact, they actually, when they were in early access with this game, they actually rebalanced him so that the first phase actually had less life, so that people didn't feel like it was this giant brick wall that they were running into when they encountered this boss. So he has 3 phases. The first phase has lasers and laser fences and these little things that try to grab you, which we will be seeing more of later. The second phase has him shooting these rockets at you, and then if you don't kill him before that part of the phase is ended, he will shoot this shockwave, which if you don't weapon swap through and use your invulnerability, it will slow you down. It's sort of like a shutdown effect. And then the third phase, he basically walks around the room. He's got these little helicopter-like things that attack you, which starts in the second phase, actually. But then he's also got different kinds of lasers that he uses. And you'll notice that, like, a third into the phase and then 2/3 into it, he throws his current head, which basically becomes a super mine. So you have to keep track of where that is on the screen, because you could very easily run into it and it'll explode and you'll have a bad time. But then, like, when he swaps heads, the type of laser actually changes. So there's a sort of big laser, then there's a really fast-moving thin laser, and then there's the shoot-da-whoop, really huge laser. So now everybody is through Justice, and we are into the 4th zone, which is really one of the most interesting in terms of level design. So you've seen some dynamic levels before, like Influx in the 2nd zone, but we're going to see a lot more dynamic level design here. So you'll see that we've got these platforms that swap in and out as the waves progress. And it's a little bit up for grabs what you end up with, because there are definitely different types of platforms. Some of them are half platforms, some of them have a hole in them, some of them have one pillar, some of them have several pillars, which are really kind of annoying and awful, and you don't want to have to deal with those. So I did mention that we were going to see the sort of like lasso effect that we saw in the first phase of Justice again, and we do, in the form of fetch Fidos. So missile Fidos were the white ones that shoot a missile when they get line of sight to you. Fetch Fidos are blue, and they sort of get line of sight, they line you up, and then they latch onto you with a leash. So it's kind of like, you know, walking a dog, the dog walks you. Yeah, that's kind of the idea. But they restrict the amount of area that you can move into. So basically, if you hear that leash sound, you want to zero in and get rid of that Fido as soon as possible, so that you get your normal movement area back. Yes, 1010 robot nose picking, Android nose picking simulator. I have to correct you on that. The robots are who we are destroying lots and lots of, but the androids are who we are fighting as. The androids are the ones that are basically an endangered species because the Nexus core has gone silent and the 4 guardians of the ship have gone rogue, and we have to find out why. So that's what this is all about. And so the bosses we've been fighting have been the section lords, the guardians of the sections. And so we've been through 3 of them now, and the 3rd one, generally, when you defeat it, tells you that the 4th one, named Venom, was stronger than them all and kind of just, like, exerted his will over all of them. And we'll find out what the deal with Venom is when we get to him. So Relay is the second level in the 4th zone, and this is the other level in the game that is less arena-like and more like a progression. I really like these levels. I think they're cool, and I would love to see more of them. But now we're on the... we had the battle elevator going down at the very beginning of the game. Now we have a battle elevator going up on this level. I'm just catching up on my notes here. So we have turbo drones on this level. Those are those red versions of drones. They are sufficiently and significantly more annoying than the regular drones. The regular drones don't really pose a threat. Turbo drones, however, will try to strafe you when you shoot at them, which is really bad for Starch, and is another reason where firepower becomes really handy for her, because it effectively, like, more than triples the width of the firing that she, the width of her weapon fire. So, but you can sort of try to wave at drones, like sort of wiggle the laser around them, and that way it'll kind of like hit them no matter which way they try to strafe. So I'm surprised that Lovebot actually just YOLO'd right onto this last platform in the stage, because I guess for going fast that's probably something you want to do, but there is sort of a safer strategy sometimes on this level, which is you stay on the second to last platform so that you have more room to deal with, and you can usually dispatch most of the enemies in this last part of the level from that second to last platform pretty effectively. But obviously it does put more distance between you and them, although they will come towards you other than the turrets. That's really the only thing you have to worry about. Lovebot's getting kind of cornered here. Okay, he's good now. And Mr. Bond is also wrecking stuff all over this final platform. Sam is working on his way there. I didn't quite see where Sam lost time, but I'm thinking he might not have had a good assembly, which was the first level in the set. Although I know he lost some time on transit too, because he got downed a couple of times on that. So, Lovebot's moving into focus now with Mr. Bond right behind him. So, you just saw the gimmick on focus on Lovebot's screen, where the ground kind of breaks from under you. And now we have these Reaper Spectres. These guys also shoot red lasers at you. And they look pretty menacing, but what you have to remember is that they will track you as they're charging the laser, and you'll see the laser, like you'll see a thin line where the laser's charging. You saw that with Justice also, and you see that with the laser turrets also. But they will stop tracking you a split second before they fire their laser. So as long as you're moving sort of perpendicular to how the Reapers are targeting you, you'll be absolutely fine as long as you keep moving. The unfortunate thing that you have to watch out for is you have to figure out where the Reapers are and make sure you're not moving parallel to them, because then you're going to still be in the line of fire and you're going to get smacked down hard. So this part of the level hasn't been too bad, but yes, we just saw Lovebot drop down, and you notice that he stuck to the outside of the level when that wave ended on purpose, because there is this blue flame in the center of the level. Now, again, to review, red damage hurts both you and enemies. Blue damage only hurts you. So this flame will not help you clear these phases, as opposed to the flame on heat. This flame will only hurt androids, and so you do not want to be, and you won't know necessarily where it's going to be. Oh, nice weapon swap, invulnerability right through the blue flame on Lovebot's screen there. You don't know where the blue flame is going to be when you first drop down, so that's why you want to be on the outside, so that you don't risk falling right into it and immediately getting downed and losing all your weapon energy and momentum. I will say that the firepower pickup is really the most preferable in general for speedruns, because it gives you 15 seconds of sustained extra damage. And also, an important thing to note about these power-ups, for Firepower and Accelerate, you can stack up to 2 of them. You can stack up to 30 seconds, basically, of that power-up. So it's not a complete waste to pick 2 of them up in a row. It just means you'll have them for that much longer. And yes, this was just in the Humble Gems bundle. So you, it's unfortunate for the timing, because you could have gotten it for like lower than $5. It was in the Beat the Average tier on it. But it was cool to see quite a few new people playing it and streaming it on Twitch the week after that bundle came out. But yeah, it's got a somewhat small but dedicated fan community, that's for sure. And I mean, it was made by 3 developers essentially, one of them being the sound engineer and composer. So you basically had two and a half coders, I guess I would say, because I think I heard that the composer actually did get into coding as well to help them out. But it's so well designed, it's ridiculous. And there's sound cues for a lot of things too. So like if you get low on energy, low on health, there's a sound cue. If you get low on battery, at 10 seconds it starts blinking red and doing like a countdown where you can hear it. When your secondary weapon cools down, which I neglected to mention this earlier, but there is sort of this little radial meter around the androids when they use their secondary weapon. That's basically a heat gauge. So like the secondary weapon overheats and you have to wait for it to cool down. And when it does fully cool down, there's like a little sort of like high-pitched clicking noise or like a little blip that you hear that tells you like, okay, you should think about using your secondary weapon. So this level is Repeater, and this is maybe the most dynamic of the levels in this set. You'll see that the ground basically forms up under you. You do have to watch out for that if you get Accelerate in particular, because you can end up sort of, like, only a certain amount of ground is allowed to form up at a time. And if you get Accelerate, you may end up running so far that you just kind of, like, the ground just runs out of tiles to put up under you, so you actually end up cornered. So you want to be a little careful about that. But there are a couple of mine phases in here that we saw that are really kind of tense experiences, because especially the first one tends to catch you in close quarters. And that's where Accelerate can kind of help to survive it. Oh, Lobot just got that Reaper just in the nick of time. This level also had mine tanks, which I don't know if we got a very good view of because they probably took care of them off screen for the most part. But yeah, just like Wasp tanks, these ones, a bunch of mines come out, so it's like the worst pinata ever. And now, okay, so Lovebot's actually going into the 4th boss. This is Venom. If anybody has played shmups like Ikaruga, you know, bullet hell shooters, that sort of thing, this may kind of strike you as familiar. This definitely, they actually tuned down the bullet patterns on this boss because people in early access were getting like completely overwhelmed and confused by them. So the patterns are pretty easily recognizable. But yeah, definitely overwhelming when you first fight this boss. And then once you get through the first 3 phases, the second 3 phases are basically more intense versions of what the first 3 phases were. So like we have 2 turrets orbiting the side of the superstructure in the 4th phase. And the 5th phase, well, you had 4 turrets on the 2nd phase, so we have 8 turrets now. This phase is actually just kind of like hard to deal with what's on, like seeing everything on screen at once. Getting a shutdown power-up or 2 on this phase is really helpful, because that way you don't have to worry about getting hit because you're invincible, and you don't have to worry about paying attention to so many things because they stop shooting. So 6th phase is like the super spindly doodle thing. Shoutouts to Moonspod for coining the term spindly doodle, which we affectionately use to refer to those. 7th phase is technically Venom's butt, I suppose, and he shoots spiderwebs, which will slow you down if they hit you, and he can also stomp you with his butt if you get really close to him. And then the 8th phase is him getting serious time, and basically he leaves behind sort of this, I don't know, sludge, which he can also sort of barf at you if he decides to. But yeah, we've got Mr. Bond and Lovebot successfully through Venom. Sam is still working on it. And Lovebot and Mr. Bond are now onto the 5th and final zone, and this first level is called Centrifuge. This level, a lot of people in the community have a lot of fun with this. Unfortunately, Lovebot just took it down there. Got overwhelmed by wasps when the wasp tanks exploded. Hopefully he can build his momentum back up fast, because this is pretty early in the level. But yeah, this level just kind of like spits everything on Earth at you out of the sides of the level. So you'll see like it spat out mines and bomber titans, now it's spitting out orbital factories and kegs. And it's just going to keep alternating between stuff that it spits out. And you generally want to stay towards the center of the room so that you don't get completely joshed by a set of mines that happens to come out of one side, like that. There will also be mine tanks, as you're seeing on Lovebot's screen right now. Ooh, that was kind of close. Or that was, sorry, that was on Mr. Bond's stream. But yeah, people in the community have a lot of fun with this level. We've had a few people actually purposely play this on virtual player count 4, which, as I said before, when you play this in local co-op, it adds more enemies and makes them tougher to kill as you add more players. Well, there's a bunch of what are called X options in this game that you can unlock with credits as you just complete levels. You get credits just for completing things. And one of the X options is called virtual player count. And what it does is you're still playing single player, but it actually treats it as if you're playing with 2, 3, or 4 players and gives you that many enemies. So we had people actually playing this on VPC 4 and getting S+ on it. Now, high scores, high score leaderboards and stuff are disabled when you use X options that modify gameplay like that. But it was really kind of funny to watch, and actually kind of sort of awe-inspiring, because there's just even on single player, this level ends up completely blanketed with enemies towards the end of it, and it's just throwing the entire Mormon Tabernacle Choir at you. As we're seeing, we're getting close to the end now, I think, on Lovebot and Mr. Bond's streams right now. Yeah, so Mr. Bond actually just reached the end, so did Lovebot. And Sam is working his way through it right now. So Control, this is the second level of the 5th zone. This is one of the most fun levels in the game. You'll see that there's this turret in the bottom left which shoots a machine gun. So basically, you've got turrets on this level that help you kill enemies. There's another turret in the top right which shoots missiles. Now, whereas the machine gun turret is basically fire and forget. You step on it once, it fires until it runs out of ammunition, then you wait for it to recharge. The missiles only fire when you step on it, which is both good and bad, because you have direct control over the ammo it uses, but you have to kind of stay in one place to use it. On the top left, there is there's a third station set up, which fires a plasma field, which is like Coral's secondary, except larger. And basically, it creates this orb that damages enemies as long as they're in it, and sort of pushes them away to an extent. We tend to not use that one as much because, again, you would have to be standing in one place, and the enemies would have to be standing toe-to-toe with you, which is really dangerous with some of the types of enemies on this level. Also, the previous level introduced Jumbo Fidos, which we're also seeing on this level. Those are the large red Fidos. They're kind of like the white Fidos, except instead of shooting one missile at you at a time, they spawn a whole ton of small missiles. So you kind of just have to keep moving and move away from the direction that was projected when they first started firing. We're also seeing Buster Titans, which are the most formidable Titan in the game. I wish they were formidable. So what they do is they kind of jump towards you, and then they will basically try to Hulk smash you and stomp you into the ground. And also notice that when they stomp, they do blue damage, which means that will not kill other enemies. It will only kill you. And those Buster Titans are one of the main reasons why we do not tend to stick with in the top left, because you don't want to be in the same place as Buster Titans if you can avoid it. You want to be kiting them or running the hell away from them so that they don't stomp you. Again, it is totally possible to weapon swap and basically tank a hit from the Buster Titans, and that's basically the last-ditch effort. If they're going to stomp, then we're going to try to weapon swap. Or take a shutdown, power up, that works too, obviously. Alright, it looks like Mr. Bond just finished up. Lovebot is just finishing up now. I'm not sure whether I have all three of these things synced at exactly the same time right now, but Lovebot and Mr. Bond both heading into Convection, which is easily the longest level in the game when played optimally. The level after this can end up being longer, but you do not want that. So this is sort of the last normal level. This is the third to last level. And as the name Convection implies, we've sort of got these convection jets that light up under us. Now, keep in mind, they're red damage, which means they can also hurt enemies. And one thing that's worth pointing out, when you first played this level, you might think that, oh man, I better get the hell off of these red platforms because they're going to kill me instantly. They will not actually kill you instantly. They sort of just bake you. It's more like a gradual baking process, I guess. But yeah, you don't want to be a cooked android either way, so you do want to stay alert to what's lighting up. And at some points in the level, the jets will actually sort of follow you, so they'll light up where you're standing and you just have to keep moving. But yeah, this is another level where basically almost everything in the game is going to be thrown at you. Also, one more enemy is introduced in this level. We saw the Reaper Spectres before, which shoot a red laser at you. In this level, we see Banshee Spectres, which shoot a bunch of blue bullets, which, again, keep in mind, that means that they only hurt you and not enemies. And one thing that we saw in Repeater, actually, which we will end up seeing again in the level after this that I neglected to point out, is Tendril Factories, which shoot a pattern of blue bullets in a circle out from their center. And it has a couple of holes in it so that you can get through it without even needing to weapon swap. The thing about all of the factories, Orbital, Vector, and Tendril Factories, is when you kill them, their nodes or bullets all disappear immediately. You would wish that was the case with the Banshee Spectres, but it is unfortunately not the case. So, as I have said a couple of times, there's a pattern emerging here. You want to kill enemies as soon as possible, especially ones that spawn really powerful or widespread attacks, because the fewer bullets that you have to deal with, the better off you are. Because that's the thing, is like when people are new to this game, they tend to try to hang back and play it safe. But the more you hang back, the slower you're killing things, the more things are spreading bullets and mines and missiles and lasers and other sorts of chaos and badly butchered memes, I don't know, on screen. So like you want to kill things, especially like Titans and Spectres and turrets, as soon as possible, so that you have less crap to deal with coming at you. So like right now on Mr. Bond and Lovebot screens, you're seeing the spread of bullets coming out from the Banshee Spectres. Just to see an example of what that looks like. And it definitely restricts, it makes your movement, you have to be a lot more careful with it. And with everything else going on the stage, between all the types of enemies coming at you, and the convection thing, and yeah, there's just tons of chaos going on. Alright, so we're heading into the second to last level for Lovebot and Mr. Bond. And we get introduced to Assault Android Licorice. She is sort of the factor behind this whole uprising that happened on this ship. So we need to take care of that, but first we need to take care of some more waves of enemies. This is probably hands down the hardest level to S+. I haven't talked about ranks, and someone in the chat mentioned it earlier, that if you're going for score in this game, there's leaderboards, and when you finish a level, you get a rank. DC, B, and A are strictly score-based. To get an S, you need to never go down. You can never get knocked down. Oh, by the way, we are going to see the only Maser turret in the game that shoots a blue laser. The only one in the campaign is in the middle of the third wave of this level. So, Mr. Bond and Lovebot already dealt with that. And yeah, this is looking pretty close between Lovebot and Mr. Bond, which is pretty cool. I know Mr. Bond has been practicing with several different characters, and I don't think he had his hopes up for being a front runner in this race, but man, he's sure keeping up. But here is the make or break factor right now. We are getting up to the fight with Licorice. Picking up Accelerate is really good because it makes you obviously faster. You can get behind things. You want to basically try to, when you're playing a start, you want to try to keep Licorice down using your micro missiles as much as possible, because you can fire those around pillars and basically not risk direct hits from her. Now, Licorice is an android, just like you. She has the same mechanics. She has a primary attack, a secondary attack. She can pick up batteries. She can pick up weapon power-ups. She can pick up weapon energy. This fight is completely a war of attrition. You need her to run out of battery before you do. So, optimally, you don't want her to pick up any batteries whatsoever. Also, ultimately, you would love to not ever fall down, but that's less important in this level than others. What's most important is getting that battery, which Lovebot seems to be doing pretty well so far. I haven't noticed if Lovebot lost any batteries to her yet. I'm guessing Mr. Bond may have, because I believe... Oh, yeah, okay, Lovebot got that battery, that's good. That's also why Accelerate is important in this match, because Accelerate makes you suck up weapon energy and batteries from closer. So Lovebot may have just taken, like, a 15 to 30 second lead on this, because, well, let's just see what happens. Oh, damn it. I feel like I just put the whammy on Lovebot. I'm so sorry. Because Licorice just picked up that battery. You kind of... controlling battery spawns in this is super frustrating. Which one of them fell there? Okay, unfortunately Lovebot fell, so this is where this gets tricky and frustrating. Because if the battery just happens to spawn near Licorice, then, well, Licorice is probably going to get the battery. So, Lovebot got the last one, so he's not in danger of dying at least. And now all three of us are, all three of the runners here are on the Licorice battle. So, Sam's getting into it. Meanwhile, oh, so Mr. Bond actually pulled out ahead. Holy cow. We got a game, guys. And girls. And lawn ornaments. And pets. So, Mr. Bond is heading into the last boss, Medulla. We're going to see some interesting phases in here. Oh, and Mr. Bond actually... So everyone approaches this first phase slightly differently. Mr. Bond actually approaches it like I do, where he crosses to the right and then follows it to the left. Now, this is where weapon swapping is super important for invulnerability, because you'll see these players basically tank the pulse of the bullets that like fires out from the center of the boss. Technically, you don't have to do that, but you're going to end up hanging around the outside. Ugh, unfortunately, Mr. Bond takes it down from the Embryo refight. It's really tough to tell where the bullets are going to spawn from in this phase of Embryo, so sometimes you can get really screwed by that. I guess he just decided, let's just go with the shutdown now rather than leave that power up for later. Different people have different strategies there too. I like to leave that power up for the phase that comes after the one that Bond is on now, because, well, if you remember the last phase of Vespula, remember how we like to have a shutdown for that? What's even better than one shutdown is 2 shutdowns. So, the Bond got a shutdown there. Micro missiles are actually limited in effectiveness against this Vespula phase, like both the last phase on her normal fight and this refight, because some of them end up inevitably hitting the Wasps instead. And you don't want them to hit the Wasps, you want them to hit Vespula, because the hits on the Wasps don't matter. Okay, so now Lovebot and Mr. Bond are both in... Lovebot must have made up some ground because of the down that Mr. Bond took. And Lovebot is actually pulling out ahead now. This is getting really tense. So that phase, the dark blue bullets on this phase are just like the dark blue bullets on Venom, actually, in that if you get hit by one of them, you will go down immediately. It's a one-hit KO. So that phase is really kind of horrifying. So now we have a Justice refight, and this will be the last of the refights. Then you go into the Tentacle phase, which Lovebot is in right now, which if you kind of have to keep the tentacles in check a little bit, which is fortunately easier with Starch than some other players, because some other androids, because she can basically, even the large tentacles that will try to smash you, you can take them out before they actually get a chance to do that. Now, it may look like the game is over. The game is not actually over yet. Geometry Wars, anybody? That's kind of what this looks like. This is the Ether Sphere. This is sort of what... the premise is that Licorice opened up Medulla's eyes to the Ether Sphere, and so once she saw that, she kind of couldn't deal anymore, and kind of started going crazy. So this Ether Sphere is sort of unlike anything you've seen in the game before, but it's sort of similar mechanics. However, it's sort of like a purist segment, where there are no battery pickups, there are no power-up pickups. You get full weapon energy almost immediately. Even if you go down, you will get full weapon energy within like a second. But there are no battery pickups, so you have to complete this phase in a minute or less. And Lovebot is through it, and at least unless the stream delay is pulling one over on me, I believe that means Lovebot is our winner. And actually, Sam has caught up also. He's also on Ether Sphere. So this is actually going to be... This is going to be like everyone within a minute of each other, which is pretty cool. Let me look at what the times are actually looking like. We're looking at basically a sub 51 for Lovebot, I think. I'm looking at the stream right now, which is on a delay. Yeah, so Lovebot got like a 50-44 or something like that. And now Mr. Bond's just waiting for... The time technically ends when they hit the complete button. So we'll just wait for Sam to get to that, and then we'll call time on this for once and for all, I guess. And assuming that my stream is within a couple of seconds, it's going to be right about now.
You want to lobotomize a spaceship.
So everybody was sub 52 at the very least.
If she figures out what we're doing, she'll destroy the ship.
Then we stabilize the core psyche during the procedure.
Oh geez, Love, you've accidentally reset your timer. That's unfortunate. But yeah, wow. So like sub 52 minutes for everybody involved, I think. That's some really good work there. I think ideal time for Starch, I think Transparent Blue has the record that's like between 45 and 46 minutes. So But Transparent Blue has also played the game for over 1,000 hours. He's pretty good at it. Shout outs to Transparent Blue, who has also done an all androids run, which took about 8 hours to run through the game with all of the different androids that you unlock. But yeah, so that is Assault Android Cactus campaign. I guess I will just shout out to, well, first of all, the runners, Lovebot, Twitch TV, Lovebot FF, Toucan Sam, Twitch TV, Toucan Sam 200. Mr. Bond is Twitch TV MB_ZHP. I am Twitch TV /CNEY, Kenny. And more information on the giveaway that we were talking about. So, there is a demo version of this game available. You all should try it, definitely. It has the tutorial, it has 3 levels, it has 1 boss, it has an unlockable android. One of the 3 levels is Descent, the first level in the game. And basically, we want to give people an incentive to try to get into running it. So we have speedrun.com/AAC, which is the speedrun page for Assault Android Cactus. And what we want people to do is give it a try and then start practicing speedrunning the first level. And the first new submission that we see from newcoming players for a sub 1:15 time on the first level in the game, Descent, we will give a key, a game key to that person. We'll just we have a Discord. If you look on the Steam discussion boards for this game, you will see a sticky there with a link to the Discord, so you can come in there and tell us your Steam info, and we can get that to you. So hope we spark some people's interest in this game. It's a great game. It's criminally overlooked, in my opinion. But hope everybody had fun watching. And I guess that about does it for us now. And I guess we'll go on to the next thing in the schedule.